Alright guys, and welcome back. We're doing our part 2 today, and this is going to be focusing on textures and some basic sound for our little game. So for those of you guys who haven't followed along, there will be a link in the description to download the blend file here. So that's what we have so far. The little guy can run around and jump. If you land on top of the guy, it kills him. You can get all your coins here, which you can catch up there. And if you get more than 10, then it gives you there. That's great. That's just wonderful. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is work on some textures. So I've already downloaded the sounds and made the textures that I wanted. So the textures I made myself, we have our bad guy, the texture for the box, and then our player when he's idling and when he's running. Real quickly, I'll go ahead and pull up the player and the bad guy file. I use GIMP for these. It's a free open source image editor. While that's coming up, I'll show you some other stuff. But basically, I built it all in layers, which allows for some more modularity, I guess would be the word. I don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the fact that we're in orthographic projection to our advantage. What I mean by that is each face here will have a different texture on it based on what we want, and then we'll rotate the cube. Whoops, wrong thing, sorry. Like this. Here we go. I'll rotate the cube, and it'll have a different image, but it'll go instantaneously from one to the other, and it'll give the same illusion as if we put a different image on it, and it'll work just fine. Again, it's still loading. So the first thing we need to do in here is to go ahead and add what's called an armature to this. So that'll allow us to give it custom animation, like when it's rotating and all that. So armature, single bone. There it is. And let's go just to straight front view here. Real quickly, let me turn on screencast keys so you guys can see what I'm doing. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to move this on top of our character in the same center there. It really doesn't matter as long as it's in the same general place. There we go. And we're going to parent the cube to the armature. But then instead of doing to object, we're going to do armature to form with automatic weights. And since it's the only bone, it'll hold everything. So now if we rotate this guy around, you can see it's rotating the mesh, but it's not moving our camera. Whereas if we move the whole object, it's moving the camera as well. See that? All right, now we're going to go over into animation view. And of course, now this guy's being all goofy. Here, if you ever get it kind of funky because we have that delay on it, just go into camera mode and it'll automatically pull itself right. Okay, there we go. And we're going to ignore the little GIMP thing down here. We'll look at him in a second. Okay, so at this point, we're going to add our animation. So actually, we'll go ahead and load the textures up first. See, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, so go ahead and save that. We'll go and look at it in GIMP here. So this is our player. This is the GIMP file itself. So what you can see here is I have a base, which is just the round ball guy. Then I have a layer that's just the eyes for when you're near idle. And then I have one that's the eyes and some extra coloring here for when you're running or moving around. And the reason I just have one is because we can just flip it in GIMP or in Blender to use. Now the tricky part is if I export it just like this, we get some funky texturing where it tries to blur the edges. So what I do instead is I go to Image, Scale Image, 512 by 512, and then instead of using interpolation, I do none, and it scales up with the pixelation still there. So you can see there's our actual. So, and this is if you want this kind of style. Obviously, you can do whatever the heck you want. This is just what I chose because I like this kind of retro pixelated style. Okay, and then I export this as one image and export this as another image, and you call it good. Basically, the same goes for our little dude here. You can see they've got the base there, and then I just added some eyes in the top in case I ever wanted to do like an idle position as well, but I just haven't worried about that yet. All right, and again, same thing, scaled it up, exported it. Now we can apply, we'll play our bad guy first. It'll be a little bit easier to do, and I'll be able to show you guys how this works. So go ahead over to UV editing. For you guys that don't know what a UV editing is, allow me to give you a little demonstration real quick. UV editing is when you take a 3D object, basically flatten it in one form or another, so it's a 2D object, and then paint on top of it. You can see they look a little goofy there. I'm trying to find a good example here real quick. Okay, here's one. So you can see here what it's doing is it's taking a cube, unwrapping it, and you have this flat image here, and then that'll wrap back onto it, which is how you get a 2D texture. Excuse me. That's how you get a 2D texture onto a 3D mesh. Okay? We're doing somewhat similar thing, but we don't really care that it's in 3D. We're just mean like that. So first things first, let's go back here, and we're going to mess with our character a little bit. We're going to need two textures. One for when the player is in his idle position, so the idle texture, and then another one for when he is running. So we'll call this one player-idle, and we'll add a texture here, make it a image or movie, and we're going to rename it player-idle. Okay, we're going to open our image, and you can see it pull up here. Okay, so right now if we were to play the game, you can see we got some funky texturing going on, and it's not really looking right. But if you notice, it's on the bottom. So what we do is, right now, it's just guessing where we want the texture. It's just slapping it straight down from the top. So the reason we have this stripe is because the bottom pixels right here are purple, and so it's translating the last row of pixels all the way down to there. Okay? Imagine it kind of like if you see it, so you can just shine it straight through, and it's going to be over there too, which will come in handy later. But now we're going to tell it that instead of letting it figure it out, so generated coordinates, we're going to use UV coordinates. And when you hit UV right now, it goes blank because there are no UV coordinates. But that's what we're about to fix. So come back over here to UV editing. Hit tab to go into edit mode, and hit U. And now you can see the different ways we can do it. We can do cube projection, cylinder, sphere, project from view, bounds, reset, light map, follow active quads, smart UV unwrap, and unregular unwrapping. So we're just going to do reset. I'm going to select them all. Make sure we go over here to player idle just so we can have an image to look at. Now if you go into shaded mode, you'll notice that it's on every single face, but some of them are upside down, some of them are upside up. It's a little weird looking. So just select this front face, the one that we're changing, and just rotate it 180 degrees. Okay. Now if we play the game now, you can see we've got our little guy there. Okay, now there's of course some weird things. For one, you can tell that he's still a cube, which we don't really want. Secondly, there's no animation when he turns and looks the other direction, things like that. So that's what we'll work on next. So the next step here is to make him invisible, so it's actually transparent where it should be. To do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go into our material. Go ahead and make it white just so it's not a pain. Okay. We're going to go ahead and all the way down here to transparency. Select it. Z transparent, alpha down to 0. Now right now it's entirely transparent because right now the texture is not controlling how much alpha it has or how transparent it is. It's influencing its color, but not its alpha. So we click alpha. Now it's influencing both. There we go. So now you can see it's sort of like a Minecrafty looking thing. So let's get into the game here and try it out. There we go. Now we're looking a lot better. Now this method that we're doing right here, as I'll demonstrate towards the end, works really well when you're in orthographic mode. It makes it simple. The tricky part is it doesn't work when you're in, dang it, whatever it's called. Here, I'll show you guys real quick another example. So if you're, oh, there we go, perspective. So if you're in perspective mode, you can see the edges of the box. See that? And that gets rid of the illusion because you can see it. And when you're in a normal mode, you can't see it because you're perfectly straight on. See that? Okay, so now let's go ahead and take our character here, and we're going to do something else now. We're going to take the two sides. I'm going to go to this side over here. And we are going to give them a different texture. So go over here. I'm going to make a new one here. And we're going to call this one, I'm going to go ahead and sign it so it's there. Make it a new one, call it player run. Again, color all the way up, specularity down, same as the last one. Okay. We're going to do the same as the last one also, and the transparency is 0. Texture, new texture, player dash run. Okay, so far this is all the same process. UV coordinates, but the image is going to be different, so we open it, texture, player, run. Okay, so you can see we don't have anything yet. Why is that, you ask? Well, it's because we don't have a UV setting for those yet that are correct. So go ahead and select our new image we're using. And I usually do U and then project from view bounds. So it's going to take whatever view you're at and project it straight on and snap the edges to it. Okay, if we do project from view, it's going to do it relative to the screen there. To bounds, snaps it all the way out, which sometimes helps and doesn't. Okay, and then we need to make sure we tell it that it also has alpha. There we go. So it's kind of opposite of how we really want. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to go ahead and swap it just because it's going to make it a little bit easier. So rotate 180. Let's see how that looks. Whoops. Scale y minus 1. There we go. Now these other ones up here actually don't have any purpose right now. So what I'm going to do, so that they don't get in the way, select them all, scale them way down, and put them in a transparent part. Now they're not even going to get in the way. We could just delete them, but the problem is we're using it as a collision surface, so if we got rid of this bottom face, it wouldn't collide with certain things. Okay, so you can see over the front, side, so you can see how that would kind of work. Of course, it'd be instant in the real one, as you'll see here in a second. Okay, so the next part we got to do is animate, which isn't really as much animation as it is just setting in where the frames are. So we're going to go into pose mode here, hitting Control Tab or just going up here into pose. And we're going to switch this dope sheet to action editor. Create a new one, call it player. Insert rotation. So frame 1, it's facing straight on. Frame 2, it's facing to the right. Insert rotation. And frame 3, it's facing to the left. Insert rotation. So now by scrubbing through left and right using the arrow keys, boom, 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 you can see how that works. Fairly decently, if I do say so myself. Alright, save that. Come back out here to default. Actually, we're going to go to logic editor, sorry. We can get rid of this little text box. We don't need that. We don't need that. Okay. Now, we're going to take, since these two are separate objects, we could have the cube tell this guy when to do its animation, or to keep things simpler, we'll just create another 3 controllers over here for the keyboard. Now, we don't need W because it's just going to be doing idle when that happens, and we don't need any of them to check when they're off. What we do is we just say, hey, all the time, basically no matter what, play the idle animation. Unless, actually, we'll get rid of those. Unless the left or right actions are being played, in which case they take priority and do them, so when they're not being played, then it does the other, if that makes sense. So we're making 3 actions, left, right, and idle. So let's make sure we know we got idle is 1, right is 2, left is 3. So we'll go ahead and punch those in. So we got frame 1 and frame 1 of player. I'm going to do play or loop stop. Right is frame 2 to frame 2, loop stop. Sorry, and left is frame 3, frame 3. Now we're going to connect these up. So left, right. Let's just test out left and right first. So left, right. So far they're not quite working. Probably because we haven't punched in the keys here. I feel silly. So A should be left, D should be right. Let's flippity flop those two. There we go. Still not quite working. Okay, so we need to figure out what's going on. Oh, we didn't select which animation to do. Well, one did. There we go. So now we're sort of working, except that we don't have the idle. So let's put the idle in here. Connect always to idle. The problem is it starts off an idle, but then it stops, and that's because we don't have the always triggering pulse mode on. So what this does is it'll say always, always, so like never let anything else happen. But of course we don't want that either. So there's a thing in here called priority. Right now, right and left have priorities of 0. The lower the number, the higher the priority is. So we're going to give idle a priority of 1. And there we go. So while the other two go, they take priority. We've got a pretty convincing little guy going on there. Now remember, it's just the cube rotating. So in fact, if we actually rotate it out this way a little bit, you can see how it rotates there. But when you're straight on, you can't tell that. Like I said, this is why you'd have some issues if you decided to go and do it in projection mode. Okay, so now we've got that done. Let's do the same thing for our bad guy. The difference with this guy, and I should have started with him. I said I was going to, but I just kind of forgot. What makes him a little bit easier is the fact that because we have the object always looking to the player, trying to follow the player, we don't have to worry about animations to left and right. We just always make him moving because he is never not moving. If you did, you'd have to do the same as you did with the player with an animation and a bone to use to control him. If that makes sense. So what we'll do here is we'll go in and give him a new texture. Well, not a new one. We'll just modify the one he has. And we'll call it baddie, because why not? Again, there's no reason but to make him a whitish color. Doesn't have to be, just, you know. Transparency down to 0. Add a new texture. Open up the texture. Baddie run. And what I'm actually going to do is come to the side here and just project it straight on. Of course, as always, we have to turn on the alpha and tell it to use the UV coordinates we gave it. Now let's just see how that works right now. So there we go. Okay, just like that, he's following us. There's a little issue though, and that is if we zoom in a little less. Do you see that little glitch right in front of his eye? It's because it's actually trying to render what's a little bit there vertically. Okay, and that's because if you look on our bad guy here, he's got a little bit on the back and the front, and this is from where the pixels skim across basically. And we don't want that. So what we're going to do is just select all these, because of course we still need it because it's colliding with things. So we're going to keep them, but just like we did on the other one, we're going to go back into the UV editor, load up the right image so we know what we're working with here, scale them down, and put them in a transparent part of the image. There we go. So let's take a look now. Okay, still got a little bit of that. I'm not sure what's up with that. I'll have to worry about that some other time, I guess. There we go. Bonk. Looking good. Okay, so now I've also changed, I added a texture on here. Let's look at that texture real quick. If you notice here, you can't really see, but it's actually just the dark gray and white values in here, and then turn to 50% opacity. So you can put other things through. Let me show you when it'll load. It'll take a second to load up here, but I think it could be good for you guys to see. Here we go. So we've got right here is a question mark made up here, and I'm gonna make a new version because actually I found a different way I want to do it real quick, so I'll show you guys that. Let's move it up. So what we're gonna do for this one, we're gonna take black, and with a 1 pixel width brush, I'm sorry, pencil, we're gonna do this outline part that's in black. So this is where it would be dipping down into. Then with white, we're gonna cover the parts that would be slightly highlighted then. Again, I'm not exactly a graphic designer, so this is the best I can do. Then we're gonna make the middle part gray. Go figure. This is like texturing 101 here, how to cheat the system. That's what it's all about. Okay, like I said, it's not the best. You'd actually want some gray in here because that's just transferring through, and this would be a lighter gray, but this is just what we're doing for now. Okay, now we're going to take our opacity and turn it down, so to about 50%. And here's the result. You can put a green underneath it, and it makes the green look like it pops in a little bit. You can put red underneath it. It's going to make it look like it's red and popping in a little bit. Again, it's not the best example of that. You'd really want to do a different effect on it rather than just overlaying this at 50% opacity. But for our purposes, it'll work fine. Okay, so there's that. And then just like the other one, we're going to do scale the image to 512 with no interpolation. Make sure you set that or else it's going to look funky. Export box1.png. Replace it. Yeah. Close it out. And I don't save it as the higher resolution format. I always keep it as the 16 so I can always come in and edit it. Okay. Now, we're going to take our box here. And because we're only going to see it from the front, we don't even care what the other sides are. So just select them all. You project from bounds. See how that is there? Go back into default so we can mess with its material. We're going to go in here. Leave that all the same. Add a new texture. Call this one brick. Image or movie. Open up texture box 1. Okay, we're going to tell it to do UV. And we don't actually need to tell it to do anything as far as alpha or anything like that because we don't really care about its alpha abilities there. The other thing you can also do if you want, you can actually do a solid, so it's not 50% opacity, and then take the color down 50%. Kind of does the same thing, but I'm just going to leave it like this for now. Okay, and what's nice about that then is you can just change, if you ever want to change the color of this, you can just change the color and it's going to change it all. Okay, so we're going to make these guys green because green's a good color apparently. Green means welcome to the party. It's kind of a similar green to this though, isn't it? Oh well. Alright, so now we've got basic textures set up. There's a little bit more functionality we might want to change on here to make it a little bit better, and this is where I'll show you. So we have a slight issue. One is, boom, we kill him. We can just make as many as we want. Right now, the glitch is kind of annoying in the fact that you can just keep jumping here for days. But in theory, you could get an infinite amount of health, really, because you're just kind of chilling out here. Right, and that's not totally what we're wanting. So how do we fix this? Well, the easiest way is to just simply limit how many this can make. So we'll just add a property here. Call this one coins left. And this number will go down one time every time that you create one. Okay. That way you can only make a certain number of them. So here we'll say whenever shield is hit on the cube there, we'll say property coins left, subtract 1 off of it. Let's go ahead and debug that so we can see how it goes. We're going to start at 5. So you can see there coins left equals 5. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, great. Now we'll create another little guy here that says pay attention to this property. If it equals 0, we want to do something. What are we going to do? Well, 2 things. One, we're going to get rid of this guy. We're going to replace his mesh with something else. So go in here, do edit object, replace mesh, and we'll get that set up here real quick. On our second layer here, our hidden layer, this top secret layer, we're going to create a duplicate object of the box here. So duplicate it, move it to layer 2. Okay, I'm going to just put it back here somewhere so we don't have to mess with it. And we're going to give it a new material, so just duplicate this one. And give it a different texture, maybe reddish, because red means no. Okay, now in the game, see it's red, but it's again using the same texture, which is nice. Keeps it simple for us. Okay, and then we'll say on this guy when he's just the mesh. Now we need to give it a unique mesh name because we're going to use this here in a second. We'll call this one no go. Now what we say is when this guy is hit enough times, when here we go, add another controller. When coins equals 0, whatever that is, change your mesh to no go. Just the graphics, not the physics part. And here's an example of that. Maybe. Oh, you know what? That needs to be on layer 1. There we go. So now, when coins equals 0, coins left, it should turn. Boom, there it goes. Okay, but right now, of course, it's still making more. We need to stop that. So now we'll say, okay, that's great. You can do all that. But there's a little bit of a difference. We also want to say, okay, if you are, make sure this is the right one I've got selected here. There we go. So not only do you have to collide with the shield in order to make one, the property coins left cannot equal 0. So if coins left equals 0, stop making them. So let's try this out. Boom, there's 5, and then it's done. That's all you got. Okay, and again, we can change how many it is, and it changes everything then. So if we put it to 15, well, let's do 25 just for kicks and giggles. And play now. Let's kill off some of our life. Oh no, we're down to 7. We can just pump it out till 25 is made, and then it's done. Okay. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. So now the next thing we need to do is add in sound effects. Sound effects are pretty straightforward. I've just got them here in a sound folder. I've got Bing, Boing, and Power Up. So these are ones that I found. Just do a little bit of looking online for royalty-free sound effects. Free sound effects, and you can find the one I used here was freesound.org. They had a lot of really awesome stuff. And all you gotta do is look for like Boing. Whoops, not Boig. It's not a word. There's all kinds of little bleeps and bloops and whatever. The bleeps, the bloops, and the creeps. Creeps, the sweeps, and the bleep. I don't know. Spaceballs reference there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make... First, I'm going to rotate this because I like being able to see our dude there. Makes it nice. The first one I'm going to do is when we hit this block. So whenever this block is hit by the shield, we're going to have it play a sound. So make a new actuator here. A sound actuator. Connect it in. Open the sound, and we're going to do Boing 1, I think is the one we want. So let's see if that works. Wait for it to happen here. Wait for this guy. Yep. There we go. Cool. And because it's connected to the same thing, after it won't do it anymore. So we actually want to make, if we wanted to always make the sound, for now I'm going to leave it not. If we did, we just add another one, set it up to the collision. So one of these triggers when it's, there we go. So one's going to trigger no matter what when this collision is hit. The other one's triggering only when both of those conditions are met. So if you wanted to do that, that's not my thing though. And we're going to do play end. So instead of it playing until you're not touching it anymore, it's going to play it all the way through. Just gives it a different sound. I like it better. All right, so that's that. The next one we need is when you land on top of this guy. So that one's going to be a little bit interesting. What we're going to have to do is tell this piece right here, the piece that's colliding with you, when you hit him, play some sound. And we're going to do the same texture, or same sound, but we'll change it a little bit. Let's give this a shot here and see what happens. Okay, so it doesn't make the sound, and I think I know why. I think it's because it's destroying the object before it has a chance to play. So let's try swapping them and see if that makes any difference. Nope, not really. Let's do play end. So now assuming it started it at all, it'll play the whole thing. Nope. Oh, that made a sound, but I think that was because it hit the box there. No, it doesn't do it. Okay, so we're going to have to make it on our player instead. So let's give our little connector guy here, the little pad one here called baddie pad. There we go. So the reason why we can't just do it on the bad guy here is because if otherwise anytime you hit him at all, he would make the sound, and that's not what you want. Plus, when you jump on him, you hit this guy before you hit the actual bad guy. So let's make this full screen just so you guys can see everything. What we're going to do here is when the player, so when you're, since that's what the sensor is for the bottom part, collides with baddie, so we'll call this, whoops, dagnabbit, baddie pad. When it hits the baddie pad, we're going to have it do something. In this case, it's going to play a sound. Let's move this up here real quick. We'll call this one baddie pad as well. I like to name my things so that I can tell what the heck I'm doing. Yeah, that guy should be back down there. Got a little ahead of myself. What in the world? This is being all kinds of wacky. I don't know what's going on. Guess that doesn't matter. Okay, so we'll take the sound here and we'll go ahead and tell it to open up Boing 1. And we'll say play to the end of the sound. So let's give this a shot. Okay, that didn't work. Not sure why. Let's figure out why. So we've got our collision set up here for baddie pad. Whenever it hits baddie pad. Make sure I copied in here right. Yep. Then you go through here, go down to sound, play it like a boss. Okay, shouldn't be anything funky here. Let's give this another shot, see what happens. Nope. That one still works. So let's see what's going on here. There's a chance that this thing has to be an actor, maybe, if it's not already. Let's try that. No. So again, we gotta kind of be a little bit more creative now and see what's going on exactly. Looking for the collision to baddie pad. It's connected through here. It does sound. Let's have it load the same Boing 1 file. Maybe it's because it's multiple of them. It's having trouble. Nope. Okay, I'm gonna reload just so it hopefully gets the pieces back in place. Okay, there we go. So now we should just have the one. Perfect. Try it real quick here. Nope. Alright, so again, this is all problem solving here. This is what we're trying to, what's really important is be able to look through and go, okay, something's not working here. Let's figure out what it is. So, I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure why this isn't quite working. Let's, wait a second. You know what? That's why. There's a duplicate one there. Okay, so if you load the file, I'll make sure to remove that. Baddie pad. Okay, let's try this now. Hey, what do you know, now it works. That's amazing. It's a miracle. Okay, so that was because we had two of the same object in the same place, and I was editing the wrong one, apparently. Now we want to differentiate it a little bit so it's not exactly the same noise. So what I'm going to do is go in here, change the sound we make, and use the pitch tool. So again, I'm not sure if it's even recording the audio off my computer. If not, you'll just have to kind of trust me. If you put a pitch of -2, it's going to slow down. It's going to slow down the audio, but also make it a lower pitch. I like that. All right, the last one we have is for the coins. Now I'm not sure if the coins will be able to work by playing sound or not. I'm guessing they won't, but we're going to try anyways because it'd be nicer to mess with that than to have to add more to our player. So we'll add a sound actuator. And whenever there's a collision with the player or with the shield of the player, we're going to play a sound. And it's going to be the bing sound, which is not actually a very nice sound. It's very harsh. So let's kill this guy real quick. Goodbye. And nope, no sound. Should have expected that. Let's do play end instead of play stop. See if that changes anything. Nope. So what we're going to do, we'll just do it in the player again. Again, I think it has to do with the fact that it's being destroyed and it doesn't have a chance really to play the sound. Okay, so we already have a collision sensor for the coin, which is here and the other one too. So it's both of them. So it comes to this spot right there. Okay, so let's expand it so we don't lose it. Add a new actuator. Sound actuator. Tie it into here. We don't need to reopen it. I don't know what I'm doing there. Hold on. Open bing.wave. Let's give this a shot now. Okay, still nothing. So let's do play end instead of play stop. We'll put this guy over here because I'm tired of messing with him. There we go. Awesome. Also, we want this guy to be able to go through those because we don't want our bad guy to get stuck on them. Oh, that's kind of cool. Now they don't interfere with each other though. Check that out. Ha! Oh, of course they go right through the ground too. That's a problem. Okay, so let's actually just put them in a different collision group. That might make sense. So, actually, we'll keep them in the main collision group. We'll put the bad guy in a different collision group and collide with everything. Okay, so let's put all of our guys are in the main first one. Let's put the bad guy in the second group. He can collide with everything in the first group. So that means he will not collide with those. No, it means those won't collide with him. I'm trying to make sure I get this all right here. So these guys keep in the first group. And he does not collide with the second group, which is what he collides with. Let's try that. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Okay. We're getting somewhere now. The last thing we want to do is a power-up sound. So whenever we get more than 10 coins, and it resets the coins and does a little power-up song for us. Okay. So to do that is, again, pretty simple. All we got to do is look over here where it adds our, which is our power-up property. Coins +1, health -1. Coins equals 0, where's the other one it goes to? Property health +1. Okay, so this one's it. Let's boom, boom, boom. So coins equals 0, health +1. Those are both what happens when we win, and when we get a power up. So we're going to add a sound actuator. And because we kind of did it backwards here, what we can do is we can actually just call this one power up. We can just move it up right next to it to keep it nice and tidy. Connect it in. So whenever it make the coin 0, adds 1 to your health, and plays the power-up song. Or a little ditty. Whatever you want to call it, I don't care. Play to the end. And let's give that a shot. So now, play our little game, kill our guy, a bunch of coins. There we go. I'm at 9. Oh, come on now, man. See if I can use my little glitch to get up on top and get those. There we go. Oh, come on. There's a glitch of it earlier I was messing around with where I could like get up on top. All right, so there we go. And of course, if you ever wanted to make more of these. You could either make them into a group, or you could just make more. You can do whatever you want. There we go. And thus, a 2D platformer was made. How's that for crazy? Got enough coins, right? There we go. Okay. Hopefully this helped clear up some things for you guys. Of course, if you ever wanted to do, like background music, something like that, all you have to do is attach it to the terrain or attach it to an empty. Just make a new empty, attach music to it, whatever you want, and it'll all be fine. So that's kind of a brief overview. Hopefully this helps answer some of your guys' questions, keep you guys going in your Blender quests. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Yell at me because you don't like the way I teach. That's fine. It doesn't matter to me. Also, if you like what I've been doing, keep your eyes out. I'm going to start a channel here pretty soon. We're going to do weekly nerd tidbits. So it'll be tutorials over everything from programming to graphic design to 3D modeling, animation, things like that. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that, and I'll see you there. Have a good one, guys.